In 1970, it produced 450 horsepower straight from the factory floor. It was faster than a Ferrari off a dealership lot. Insurance companies were so terrified of it, they refused to cover anyone under 25. 3 years later, GM killed it, not because it failed, because it worked too well. This is a story GM never wanted told. To understand why GM killed the Chevelle SS, you have to understand what was at its peak. General Motors needed a mid-sized performance car. Ford had the Mustang. Pontiac had just invented the muscle car with the GTO by exploiting a loophole in GM's own rulebook. The Chevelle SS was born that year, a car so clean in its design, so raw in its intent, that it sold immediately, relentlessly, without apology. By 1966, it was one of the best-selling performance vehicles in America. But the real moment, the moment that changed everything, came in 1970. General Motors engineers dropped the LS6 into the Chevelle SS, a 454 cubic inch V8, 450 horsepower. From the factory, this was not a race car. This was a car you could walk into a dealership and buy with a handshake and a loan. Car and driver tested it. Quarter mile in 13.8 seconds. 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. Numbers that would embarrass European sports cars at twice the price. Insurance companies panicked. Several refused to cover owners under 30. Some refused entirely. The federal government noticed, and inside the boardrooms of General Motors, a very different conversation had begun. By 1971, 3 forces had aligned against the Chevelle SS. None of them were about engineering. None of them were about the car. Force 1, the government. The Clean Air Act of 1970 passed. The EPA began setting emission standards that made high-compression V8 engines nearly impossible to build legally. GM's engineers were told to tune. By 1971, the LS6 was gone. The 454 remained, but choked down. 365 horsepower, then 270. The numbers fell every year like a countdown to zero. Force 2, the insurance industry. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety began publicly lobbying against high-performance vehicles. They published safety data. They testified before Congress. They pressured insurers to price muscle cars out of reach for young buyers, the exact buyers who wanted them. A 22-year-old in 1972 could not afford to insure a Chevelle SS, so the 22-year-olds stopped buying them. Force 3, GM itself. This is the part that never makes it into the press releases. By 1972, General Motors was facing shareholder pressure to cut costs and simplify its lineup. Performance cars were expensive to engineer. They attracted regulatory attention. They required specialized components that complicated the manufacturing process. The Chevelle SS was not killing General Motors. It was just inconvenient. And inside the executive floors of General Motors, inconvenient things had a way of quietly disappearing. The car that had outsold European sports cars. The car that had terrified actuaries. The car that had set records from a dealership floor. It was about to receive a death sentence, dressed up as a product decision. If you've never heard this story before, that's exactly the point. Hit subscribe. We cover the automotive history they don't put in the brochures. Back to the story. In 1973, General Motors discontinued the Chevelle SS as a standalone performance package. No announcement, no farewell edition, no ceremony. The Chevelle body survived until 1977, but the SS Performance soul had been removed. The badge remained. The car it represented was already dead. The LS6, the most powerful production V8 engine General Motors had ever installed in a passenger car, was never offered in the Chevelle again. The muscle car era did not end in a single dramatic moment. It ended the way powerful things always get killed by institutions. Slowly, quietly, one compromise at a time. A horsepower number reduced here, a package removed there, a badge retired without ceremony, until one day, a buyer walked into a Chevrolet dealership, looked at what the Chevelle had become, and drove home in a Ford instead. In 1977, the last Chevelle rolled off production line. GM issued no statement marking the occasion. They had already moved on. Here is what General Motors did not anticipate. The cars they killed did not stay dead in the culture. A 1970 Chevelle SS LS6 in good condition sells at auction today for between $150,000 and $300,000. The cars that insurance companies refused to cover in 1971 are now worth more than most people's homes. Collectors do not line up to pay $200,000 for a badge-engineered sedan. They pay it for the last of the real ones, for the cars that existed before the committees decided they were inconvenient. And then something unexpected happened. General Motors trademarked the name Chevelle SS again. Renderings circulated. Rumors of a 2027 reveal. A modern Chevelle SS, built to carry a name that GM had discontinued without ceremony half a century earlier. Whether it will carry even a fraction of what the LS6 meant is a question GM hasn't answered yet. But the fact that they're bringing the name back tells you everything you need to know about what they destroyed. You don't revive a name nobody misses. GM killed the Chevelle SS because it was inconvenient. They're bringing it back because they never built anything that replaced what it meant. The LS6 is gone. The name is coming back, whether the soul comes with it. That's the story we'll be here to cover when the 2027 model finally arrives. If you want to be there for it, subscribe and drop a comment below. What does the 2027 Chevelle SS need to have to be worthy of a name? We read every single one. The next video is right there.